guys, I'm Lindsay Cummings. I am a reader, I'm a writer, I'm an author at HarperCollins. So this week I want to talk about books and writing and how it saved me. I grew up as one of these crazy athletic people, and I had all these huge dreams, and I wanted to be a rock star. So my plan was to graduate high school, go to college for vocal jazz, and just marry this sexy, hot reader, surfer, ripped Christian dude. And that didn't happen. But I am getting married to a hot guy, so that's awesome. So that was my plan, and that didn't happen at all. Graduated in 2009, I got sick. And I don't just mean I had a cold or the flu, I got really sick. I had this crazy, debilitating fatigue, and I couldn't do anything. I was nauseous all the time, I was dizzy. There were days where I just didn't get out of bed because I just didn't feel like it. And it wasn't that I was depressed, because I always told my doctors my mental state is great, my body is just not my body anymore. So I was standing in the shower and my legs just went out from under me, and I just sat there until the water got cold, and I just felt so pathetic. And there was this other day where I was just so angry. I started to become angry because I went to all these doctors and none of them could help me, and I had all these surgeries, and I felt awful. And then I did start becoming depressed, and I felt like I hated God, I felt like I hated life. And I remember this time my boyfriend told me, I love you, Lindsay, but I don't like you anymore. I felt like I was half dead, and I just went through life not me. And then that's when it really hit home that my plans for my life were gone, my dreams were dead. I wasn't good at anything anymore, and I just felt worthless. I didn't know if it was really worth it to be me anymore. And then I had a surgery, and I picked up a book. It was The Hunger Games. And I'd read it before in high school, but I hadn't really read it between the lines. I hadn't really looked into it. And I read all three in like a day, and I became those characters. I fell into that world, and by the time I was done with all of them and I shut the book, I felt like I was alive again. Because for that whole day, I had been living in an entirely different world than my own. So I went back in time. I looked at my dad's journal. Sorry, Dad. When he was 19, the same age that I was when I got sick, he lost both of his legs to bacterial meningitis. He was in the hospital in a wheelchair for months. His whole life had changed. He couldn't stand up and walk. Compared to what I had, I just felt like I was a loser for being so upset about my life. So in his journal, I looked at everything that he'd written, and I was shocked that he wasn't angry. He was so positive, and he thanked God for putting him in that situation because it made him stronger. And that was the moment where everything changed for me. I went and talked to my dad, and he said, why don't you write? Why don't you read? Those are the things that you've always loved, so why not do it? Started reading more. I read, Neil Schusterman, Scott Westerfeld, Lauren Oliver, Veronica Roth. I read the Hunger Games series again. Little by little, all these books and these stories were lifting me up until I felt like I could stand again on my own 2 feet. I started writing. I couldn't stop. I made up an idea of this world that was caged in, and it was, it lived off of fear and death and destruction, and I put my own feelings, my own depression and anger into that book. And then it became the murder complex, and it became a career, and it became a new dream, and it was a dream that I realized I probably had all along. And I had to learn to love myself through everything first. I had to learn that it was okay to mess up, and it was okay to not be perfect. When life is hard, it's a good thing because it makes you stronger. It teaches you, that you can overcome things. I just needed an outlet to help me through it, and that outlet was books. And every time I read a book, when I got to the end of the pages, I just felt more and more alive. I was living again. And I started reading the Bible again, and there were so many stories in there that were awesome too, and it was just this whole thing of stories. They were everywhere, and I thrived off of them. And I still struggle with things. I still doubt myself. I still feel depressed on a lot of days. I'm on medicine for that, and I'm not afraid to admit that, because I'm on a path, and I'm stronger inside than I ever was, even if I'm not strong on the outside. I just hope that someday, when there's other people like me that have gone through the same thing, where they just don't feel alive, that they can pick up my books and they can read my stories, and by the end they can learn that fear is something that can be overcome, and that they can live again. Life is going to come at you, and it's going to come at you hard, and you have to be ready to face it when it does, and you have to learn to look at those obstacles and crush them. And you can do it, and I know that you will. I'm a reader, I'm a writer. I have lived 1,000 lives in the pages of books, and some of those books I've written myself, and some of those books have been written by others, but I feel like they've been personally written for me. And all those lives that I've lived through books have been worth it, and I would do everything over again, because to me, books are worth it. And I thank God for putting me on this journey every day.